Hello there, Seraphim17 once again, bringing you some more Modern Warfare 3 goodness. This time it is a kill confirmed on Village, and you'll notice that Village comes up a lot in my gameplays, and the reason for this is I do well on the map. There's a couple of maps that you'll notice show up all the time on gameplays. Underground's a good one for me, Dome's a good one for me, Village is a good one for me, and I'm trying to think of the other one, and Mission can be a good one for me. There is a few maps that I will put up frequently because they are the games that I get the best scores on. And it's not because I'm obsessed with the maps or anything, or I don't like diversity, it's just because I don't generally get 30 and 5 on Carbon or Bootleg. I generally get much rougher games. There are times when I have got good scores on them, but they've not been worthy of going up on my channel, because I generally like to put the games where I have usually less than 10 deaths and more than like 25 is usually my standard. And it's not because I want to show that I get the best gameplay or anything, it's just because that way there's not too many deaths, but there's just enough deaths so that I can mock them and I can hopefully make, you know, a couple of funny tangents about them. But at the same time, there's enough kills so that you're seeing me do well, as opposed to just seeing a guy run around play Call of Duty. And hopefully the game will be exciting, because my main point of all my gameplays that I try to put up is it has to have a point. It has to either be exciting, or it has to tell a story, or have something I found exciting. Like right now, I'm getting railed, so this one is kind of a comeback story of having a bad start and coming back into it and getting a few more kills and doing a bit better, you know, just fighting the odds and somehow coming out on top. And that happens a lot for me on this game. But I am going to be getting back onto Modern Warfare 3 shortly, hopefully, so I can get some more gameplays and play some more, because I have been missing it. I haven't played it for about 2 weeks, and it's just because I've been busy, and it's one of those things where I'm going to try and organise some times where I play with some subscribers on it so we can get some full teams, and just have some fun, because that's the main thing that can be missing with this game. When you get focused on doing well and winning games, you can lose the fun factor, because this game can be really hard to do well on, especially if you get put on a connection that, you know, just wants you to die. But that is not what I want to talk about on this video. I want to talk about something Call of Duty related, but campaign related, or game related, which is not this game. So just sit back, relax, and soak up some of this, you know, ACR goodness, which is a gun I've used a lot, so I will start to try and get different gameplays with different weapons. So do bear with me, folks. I just don't have the same amount of time as I usually do. But I recently started playing Call of Duty World at War, which is Call of Duty 5 for people that don't know. And I never played this when it came out, because I was one of those people that was so pissed off with World War II shooters that I didn't want to play another one, regardless of who made it or what name it had. So I completely boycotted it, I completely abandoned it, and didn't go anywhere near it. I'm kind of glad I did that, looking back, because I've just now played it, you know, 5 years down the line, or however long it's been out. It's probably been out about 4 years now. And I had a lot of fun with it, but everybody says that this game is ridiculously insane on Veteran. And I don't think it is. The game itself is hard. It is much harder than Modern Warfare 2 that followed it. It is much harder than Black Ops, and it's much harder than this game, Modern Warfare 3 on Veteran. And but I don't think it's the hardest, and there's a couple of reasons I think behind this. The first one is, I do believe the first time you do something is always going to be the hardest one, and the one that sticks in your memory. So to me, Call of Duty 4 on Veteran will always be the hardest, because it's the one I had the most trouble with. It's the one that took me the longest, it's the one that, you know, I got to those moments where I was on them for hours. And on World at War, I was stuck for maybe half an hour on one area. The rest I was stuck for maybe 15 every time I got stuck. I never got stuck for longer than like 30 minutes. And don't get me wrong, there were still ridiculously hard sections, as I get hit markers for days on that guy, which is bullshit, should have killed him. And there are hard moments to it, but it's not what people make out. And the first thing I will say is, if you're hesitating playing it because of the reputation that game has for difficulty, don't worry too much, it's not that bad. The other thing I'll also add on to the previous point I made is, when I beat Call of Duty 4, I was not that good at first-person shooters. I didn't play them on the hardest difficulties. I didn't get to this fine-tuned ability that I have now, where I understand how the games work and I understand how to approach them. I didn't have that, so I was getting my ass slapped a lot. And obviously, this is the most recent one I've played, World at War, I know exactly how to play Veteran now. I've played it 4 times before. I know that there are areas where you have to push recklessly and risk a few deaths to get where you need to be. I know that smoke grenades are a win button if you throw them and you run into them because the enemies don't attack you as frequently as they did. I know a whole bunch of tricks I didn't know when I did 4, and I think that's the reason why it's diminished for me. But the areas that I did have trouble with on World of War, I had a lot of trouble on Their Blood, Their Land. The very first, when you go left, the very first section where you have to move through the trench, and you can either go left or right, but when you go right, you just go up onto a balcony and you watch the enemies as they endlessly spawn, and there doesn't seem to be any way of doing anything from that direction. And then when you go left, you have to go through the trench, and there's so many enemies that are spawning on you all the time, and grenades. That took me about 20 minutes. That was probably the hardest part of the game for me, because it felt like it wasn't physically possible. It felt just insanely difficult. And I managed to do it. It wasn't pretty, but I got through it. And it was the only part of the game that I can honestly say felt like I shouldn't be playing it this way, because it didn't feel right. It really, really sucked. The other areas that I had a lot of trouble with were the flamethrower levels, the burn them out, the third mortar pit on that, where you have to go through that cave. That is horrific. That is really horrific. Just as horrific as this random lag, slowdown processor bullshit that happens all the time on this game. But I had a lot of trouble there. After that, I had trouble following the fire tank on eviction up the hill. That was pretty hard until I went crazy with smoke grenades and managed to just kind of, cheese it a little bit. And then the corkscrew and blowout, I had a lot of trouble with that one. That is a tough level. That took me a while. And it's mainly because, like, the enemies are in such deep grass you can't see them. You try and burn the grass down, and the only thing that happens is you get killed immediately. So it got to the point where I just threw a smoke grenade and ran for it, because there was nothing I could do. And obviously the heart of the Reich, the bit where you have to take down the AA towers, that bit is hard, but once you have a route through it, it's not hard at all. It's just the game doesn't really help you, and it's so full of grenade spam, so full of endless spawns and just bullshit. It makes it not very fun. And I do think that game has some of the loosest scripting ever, and it actually makes it more difficult. The amount of times where you're just supposed to sit in a window and shoot a bunch of dudes to progress the game, yet the game doesn't tell you that's what you're supposed to do, is horrific. There is a handful of moments where you have to go against everything you know to be true on Call of Duty to get past, where you just have to sit back and shoot dudes until your team push forward, and then they'll open a door for you. But if you try and push forward with your team, they never seem to open the door. They'll always stay in cover, and the enemies will just eventually overwhelm you with grenades or with spawns. And there's a whole bunch of areas like that, like when you have to go up the steps at the end of Heart of the Reich, where if you sit in the buildings sniping dudes and will let your team do all the work, and you sit there for like 10 minutes, your team will eventually push forward, and all you have to do is run forward, trigger the explosion of the pillar, and then you've done it. But if you try and push up with your team, it is one of the hardest parts of the game, because you just get killed immediately. And there's so many moments like that where you just have to kind of wait, and if you don't wait, you'll just die, and the game doesn't tell you, stick with your team, or sit behind this boulder for 20 minutes until the game ends. It doesn't tell you that, and it makes it harder. And it's really interesting, because I do think that this campaign is really, really good, really, really fun. It's one of the better Call of Duty campaigns I've played. I'm really glad that I gave it the time, to play it, because when you're bummed out on anything, it's never as fun. So I enjoyed it a lot more, because I've not played a World War II shooter in a while, or a Pacific shooter, whatever you want to call it. But I do think that this is the game that suffers the most on Veteran. This is the one that the fun and the enjoyment is diminished so much more than the other games, because the grenade spam is it's like people will tell you that you get grenades thrown at you, and I didn't really believe it on the first 3 levels. The first 3 levels of this game are easy on Veteran. There's hardly any grenade spam. They're very simple, they're very enjoyable. It makes it feel like you're going to have fun. Then after that, it's a bit of a downhill from there, and it gets to the point where I think I had 7 hit grenade markers on my screen at the same time at one point. That is how many grenades they throw at you, and it's such a bad idea, and it diminishes the fun value of it, and that is why I think it has the stigma that it does, because it's very frustrating. It makes it more frustrating than hard. And it's because of bad checkpoints, it's because of grenade spam, and it's because of endless spawns that are obnoxiously close to where you are. But thanks for watching, thanks for listening, thanks for supporting me. Anybody that leaves a comment, I'm eternally grateful. Anybody that drops a like or a favourite is a absolute legend. And if you subscribe, you're just becoming part of this fantastic empire that I'm building, and it's good to have you with me.